President Obama will unveil his report card for the war in Afghanistan today, and the announcement comes on the heels of the president's key strategist Richard Holbrooke's death. 2010 has been the deadliest year of the war. Nearly 500 Americans have been killed. White House Press Secretary Robert Gibbs announced this week the administration will start withdrawing troops from the region in July of 2011. Jeff Smith joins us, a Kramer Strategy Fellow from the American Foreign Policy Center, to talk about the state of the war and what impact Richard Holbrooke's death may have in the administration and in the region. Jeff, it's good to see you this morning.
Good to be here.
We're expecting to hear the White House say that the situation is better now than it was before the troops surged. Would you agree with that?
I think militarily the situation has definitely improved. With the infusion of 30,000 new troops since December of last year, military progress has been made in the east and the south, where the Taliban has been, their attacks have been the highest levels. The problem has been more on the political front. There's corruption in the Afghan government. There is a lack of legitimacy with President Karzai beyond the borders of the capital, Kabul. And there are safe havens for the Taliban in Pakistan. And these components are what's really keeping the Afghan war effort bogged down. Not so much the military progress, which we knew we'd be able to make with the infusion of troops. We've now raised the levels to 100,000 troops. Last troops got there at the end of September. But it's these other factors where progress has continued to be stalled despite the fact that we are at much higher troop levels.
And the question then becomes, if we are indeed going to scale back on that troop level starting next year,
right?
How do we solve the problem, the political problem there that is undermining what you're saying is halting these efforts?
Well, I mean, that's the question on everyone's mind right now. President Obama's decision to scale back troops in July of 2011 was widely criticized, both here in the U.S. and in Afghanistan. And it was revealed later that some of the decision-making process was for domestic political reasons, that he wanted to appeal to his base by providing a deadline for U.S. troops to withdraw, and it ended up giving the Taliban a date to look forward to when the U.S. troops would begin withdrawing. They could use it as a propaganda message that America was not here to stay like they weren't back in the 80s, and it gave them comfort.
From the political standpoint, is it more a question of having Afghanistan do more to hunt down insurgents itself, or is it a question of Pakistan doing more to not have safe harboring of terrorists in Pakistan, or are they equally important?
Well, corruption in Afghanistan and political legitimacy in Afghanistan is critically important to building a government there. But in terms of the military effort, there's nothing more important than shutting down the safe havens in Pakistan. And everyone has agreed to this point now. Ambassador Holbrooke elucidated this point many times. The Obama administration, we now know, understands this at the deepest levels of the White House. The problem has been what to do about it, because Pakistan has been obstinate, has refused to go into many of these safe havens and crack down on these Taliban hideouts.
Unfortunately, with the passing of Richard Holbrooke this week, you lose that special envoy presence that you had for so long there in Afghanistan and Pakistan. What kind of an impact may that have now on the plans moving forward?
Ambassador Holbrooke was a skilled diplomat, and one of the things he was able to do was to go around some of the interagency rivalries and get things done himself, force people to work together, put a plan on the table, and make sure it got enacted. Without him there, they'll revert to the state bureaucracy. And I think, on one hand, General Petraeus has become sort of the point man with President Karzai in the past few months anyway, and I think that role will continue to grow with the loss of Ambassador Holbrooke. Ambassador Holbrooke had somewhat strained relations with President Karzai, so people had begun to question how effective he was as a special representative anyway. But certainly in terms of his ability to get around interagency battles and implement reforms on the ground, that skill will be missed.
All right. Interesting stuff, Jeff. Thanks. We really appreciate you coming in this morning.
Sure.